Have you guys seen this Gura art? Well, maybe if you follow me on Twitter, because I posted it. And it turns out that I had an AI make it. In a tweet that also reads, "Real talk, as I said in my segments covering AI art over the last 1.5 months, I'm very concerned for artists. After testing some AI myself, I'm even more concerned. The tech is rudimentary at the moment compared to where it will be, and even with its flaws, it's already so efficient." Keyword, efficient, more on that in a moment. The potential for AI learning to change other sectors seems extremely likely as well. I kind of suck at giving my opinion through text though, so instead of making a video about it is basically what the rest says. And that's just one example. I've performed a number of tests. Here's some more of the art that I got, and, well, art, air quotes, AI-generated image is more so my preferred way of explaining that, but that's a bit of a mouthful. I digress. Before we go any further, though, with more of my concerns regarding AI art and more of these examples and some of the funny mistakes that the AI learning made, well, I'd like to mention that this video is sponsored by NordVPN. You may have heard of the benefits of using a VPN, particularly for anime fans in various regions across the globe, as certain sites have region-locked access, which NordVPN can help you resolve. Conversely, you can use a VPN to stay at home virtually to retain access, even when traveling abroad. NordVPN users have also reported the benefits of using the service to also access region-locked games, or to find games available at a discount in other regions. And of course, NordVPN also defends your device from malware with its threat protection feature. For extra protection, users can even route their traffic through 2 VPN servers to double their encryption. All in all, there are a variety of uses that anime and gaming fans may utilize via NordVPN, and a single account may be used on 6 devices. Pretty cool. If you would like to get NordVPN, please check out my link, nordvpn.com/herohey, in the description or pinned comment, and check out the 2-year plan with an exclusive deal and 4 bonus months free, which is also risk-free, by the way, with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. So thanks, NordVPN. And let's get back to the news now. I'd also like to mention, I don't want to make it seem like 100% of everything regarding AI art and AI learning is bad. I think it definitely means interesting things for the future. And I think there's going to be a number of businesses that like AI learning and utilize it, and also even just like individual people starting projects as well that maybe are limited on funding and things like that. However, those benefits are exactly part of the concern. Many people are concerned that using AI learning for such will take away work from real people. Before we go any further into that discussion though, let's return to some examples of the AI art and some of the flaws that it obviously has. For example, Mori in this one doesn't look too much like Mori, and it seems like the AI learning accidentally put her tiara onto Gura. I suppose you could also say Gura's a bit taller and more well-endowed than she normally is too. Here's another example. You can see there's some shenanigans going on with the eyes, and once again with the tiara. I tried to get the AI to make them doing some more like action sort of poses, and you can see it once again had an issue with the eye here, although it did a decent job with like the action poses and like moving or whatever. But the hand like here, for example, looks kind of odd. Like what's going on there? It's like it's like Mori's elbow is Gura's hand. What the heck? So as I mentioned at the very start of this video, there are certainly flaws with machine learning, and what I'm using right now is Novel AI, so there's probably different flaws with different services and all that, so something to keep in mind. And once again, I'm not an expert on this topic, just kind of sharing my experiences with you of what I've learned about it over the last couple of days, trying it out myself, reading into it, etc., etc. And one of the main points to this video is simply raising the question, where is AI learning and machine learning? Where's it all going to be a year from now? Or 3, or 5, or 10, or 15 years from now? I think it would be unwise to underestimate the technology, not just as an artist, but for any business that you think AI learning may affect. After all, you don't want to go the direction of Blockbuster losing to streaming services or analog photography losing to digital. And that's another big point I'd like to raise. I don't think AI and machine learning is only going to affect the art industry. I think it has potential to affect many sectors. And that's not some, crazy theory. No, we're already seeing that playing out. I mean, there's machine learning with text-to-speech, with deepfakes, with art, with writing. And you combine all that with, once again, the fact that the technology is still pretty rudimentary, pretty new, and I could definitely see this causing people to lose many jobs in the future. Conversely, it might create some jobs. You may have companies hiring people to work with machine learning. However, I would imagine that that's going to be an extremely low amount in comparison, extremely low ratio in comparison to the amount of people that could potentially be losing work. Now, hey, if you're a business owner, you might love that. You might have cut 80% of your wages, and not just that, you're now getting the work done way faster and more efficient for way less. As a business owner, you're rubbing your hands. You're like freaking Mr. Krabs. You're like, oh, I'm freaking stoked. This is great. That's obviously a bit of hyperbole. I say that in a bit of jest, although there's certainly going to be some truth to it. But as I mentioned, I think already too, it's not just going to be businesses that can find benefits to AI learning. You might have people doing like startup projects, people that are short on time or short on a budget, and they may find benefits to AI learning as well. And that's arguably one of the biggest factors here. There's like 3 main things to me. The art itself, or depending on what machine learning we're talking about, it wouldn't be art, it could be writing, deep fake, audio, whatever, but let's just stick on art for now. Could be the art itself, which is good or bad. What is arguably even more relevant, or at the very least just as relevant though, is the cost, which at the moment AI learning art is like dirt cheap. And finally, also the time. Like if you commission an artist, depending on their backlog, how many commissions they got, it might take them a week or two to finish your art, maybe even a bit longer, maybe less. It's variable. The AI learning, the machine, can give you 50, 100, 500 pieces of art within minutes. Now, how much of that art is good? How much of it is usable? Well, that's the question. Sometimes the results aren't that great. Sometimes they may be really good, but then you got like two things that are just glaringly wrong with it that ruins the whole thing. So like I said, there's certainly flaws. Conversely though, how long would it have taken you and how expensive would it have been to have gotten like 100 pieces of art done? Certainly more expensive and longer than it would have taken the AI to make it. So if the technology is already dirt cheap, it's already super fast, it's just that the results are a bit scuffed, well, down the road, years from now, if the art itself, the results are smoothed over, or you get more parameters to set, more details. At the moment right now, like the more detailed you make it, the more characters you add, the more complex it is, the more the AI might have an issue with it. But you can also give the AI an example of art you want it to try and replicate and things like that. So there are ways even currently of kind of working around that. I find it pretty morally gross though that people are able to like take someone else's art and then tell the AI like, yeah, I want it to be kind of like that. Like that's disturbing stuff. Like I mentioned, my opinion on this is mostly negative. I do think there's a lot of downsides to AI learning and AI art. I'm just not going to say it's all bad from business perspective. I can certainly see the benefits in many ways. I'm not going to lie to people and be like, yeah, I can't imagine a business would use this. No, I certainly can imagine that they would. That doesn't take away from my concerns though. All right, we've talked about businesses a bit, but let's go back to the point about individual people finding benefits to AI learning and specifically, once again, AI art. So you may have, for example, someone who's writing a book, but they want some art to go along, art of their characters and the setting and things like that to go along with the book. They're on a very tight budget though. Actually, they have no budget, so they can't afford to hire any artists. So they're like, oh man, I guess I won't have art. Or then they find this new service for AI learning and it's dirt cheap and they can find the budget for that because it's like pennies on the dollar, so to speak. And they have the AI machine make some art of their characters and now they got some art to go along with their book. Now, I guess you could argue that they weren't technically taking art work away from any artist because they never would have hired an artist anyway. So it was either this or nothing. So is there an issue at that point? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is just one example I brought up. And obviously, like one example of someone not taking a job away wouldn't mean every example for AI learning means that no one's losing jobs. It's just one tiny example out of a whole sea of examples we could use. It's an interesting concept, though. I'd like to take a look as well to tweets people made in response to my tweet. That gave me a little bit of pushback. I'm not entirely sure what my response is going to be yet. And this isn't like me calling them out. No, we're just having a discussion here. It's like people in the community and all that. We're having a chat. But the point I'm getting at is I may be bringing up points I already made earlier in this video. I don't know yet. Let's take a look at what they're saying. We got some comments here from Elethiel, Empress of the Deep, and also Vanix. And Elethiel essentially says that AI art will never reach the point of making anything more than generic art pieces, and that it's not going to make a dent in the art market in the first place. If you put in more than one character, it messes up. Well, once again, I'd like to point out that that's where it is currently. It's very, very rudimentary. Where is it going to be in a year? 3, 5, 10, 15 years from now? Plus, I would say it's already making a little bit of a dent in the art market, in my opinion. Actually, I almost forgot. This just reminded me. I almost didn't bring this up. Yesterday, I made 3 videos. Every single thumbnail had AI art in the thumbnail for the video. And I did that on purpose because I was going to bring it up today that I did that. And I totally forgot about it until I read this. So thank you, Elethiel, for the reminder. So yeah, quick side note. Every thumbnail from yesterday included an AI-generated image, including one I made of myself. I gave the AI art this image of me from Twitter, and it came out with this result, so I used that for a thumbnail. I got one of that LA politician, Nuri Martinez. I put her image in, and the AI turned her into an anime girl, so I made that for a thumbnail. That was kind of funny. And then we had Diva right before that, which I just made with no example, just put in like Diva and some other parameters. I forget what I used, but that's how I ended up getting that. Now, obviously, if I didn't do that sort of thumbnail, I would have just done my traditional thumbnail where it's like text, like a tweet or the headline or whatever. So that example is obviously not taking work away from anyone. I was just kind of memeing around and trying to put it in application, test it out for myself, this sort of thing, furthering my knowledge on the topic. And also seeing if anyone was going to say something in the comments. I think I got 2 comments, at least that I saw about that. One was like, hey, what's going on with the art in those 3 thumbnails lately? Didn't say anything else. I said I would elaborate it further in this video, and well, here we are. So back to Twitter, Alethiel would also say you can get super specific results, sure, but just attempt to make a 5-person piece, all of which have their own unique design, it's not going to happen. And once again, I just got to say, I think it's wise to keep in mind where the technology is going to be in the future. There's nothing stopping anyone from making parameters you can set for multiple characters and how you generally want them to look. Right now, it's like, yeah, it's a bit difficult to get super finely tuned details with AI learning. I don't think it's, let me rephrase. I think it's going to get better as time progresses, and I think it would be foolish to think the inverse. We've also, not that I'm saying Alethiel is foolish. Once again, we're just kind of talking here. My bad if that came off a bit aggressive. Vanix also says, I've noticed people worried about AI taking over artists' jobs aren't artists or aren't professional artists yet, like they might do commissions but aren't paying the rent yet, and therefore don't really understand the value in being an artist. There's so much more to it than the technical ability to draw a pretty girl. I think you might be underestimating the AI art. Like, it's not just that it might come out with a pretty drawing or it might mess up. It's that, once again, it's really, really inexpensive, and extremely fast. And it's likely to only improve on those areas and improve on the art aspect as well. So, you know, we'll see. I also personally seen, like I mentioned earlier, analog photography and digital photography. I've seen how that all went down personally. My mom was a photographer. She loved analog photography. She didn't like digital when it first came out and didn't convert to digital, and she ended up unfortunately losing a lot of business. And a lot of these photography studios, same thing. There used to be all these studios around Hollywood. You'd have to go, you know, they'd have the dark room and stuff. You give them the photographs, you'd give them the like film roll, then they take the film roll and do whatever they do in the dark room to make it into the actual photos. You go pick them up and everything. But then digital came out. Suddenly you don't need photo labs to use a dark room. Suddenly you can do it from your computer, and that technology only got better over time, and analog only started going out of business more and more and more. Now, the caveat is you do have some like niche boutique businesses where it's like, yeah, we still do analog photography, and you may have some people that actually want that. Generally, people that are pretty well off at times want things like that because it's kind of like unique or whatever. So there's certain niches where people may adapt, and the same thing may apply to artists. Hypothetically, if AI art takes over in the future, you may have some artists that run some like small business where they actually have like a niche where they make a killing, like they do a great job, but that's going to be a very fringe example, and I don't think that's going to be the case for most artists. And again, keep in mind what I just outlined is a hypothetical. I'm not saying that's 100% how it's all going to play out. It may not. We'll have to see. Alethiel would also write some more here and post some of their art. Nice art, by the way, Alethiel. I'd like to mention another example, by the way, because this video is kind of, well, actually very long for my usual segment, so I don't want to keep this too much longer. So if you want to read this, by all means, there you go. And I'll just say, in the meantime, one issue I can imagine for AI art is that businesses and corporations don't like risk and uncertainty. So with AI art, where there's a lot of uncertainty with the final result, that's going to be a big turnoff, so to speak, for businesses. Now, that said, even with that potential downside, when it's this fast to create and inexpensive, that's going to take a lot of the, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of their concerns about the uncertainty away. You know, it's worse if you're taking a lot of risk and it's expensive and it's time consuming. Then it's like really, you got to be really, really careful before you pull the trigger. However, if it's not that risky from a monetary standpoint, like you don't need a big investment into it and it's super quick to see if it works or not, well, that might curb the potential concern from businesses regarding the uncertain results on some level. And once again, there's the argument as well that in the future, down the road, years from now, or maybe even less, we'll see how this all develops there too, that the technology might be so good where even that risk and that uncertainty isn't really a concern anymore. Maybe the results just end up being that good. We'll see. Ultimately, like I said, I think it's unwise to underestimate the technology. I think there's some benefits to it from a business perspective and even from independent, like, people doing startups and stuff or little projects and all that. There are benefits for these things, of course. There's a lot of downsides to it as well. And then final summary, I think there's a lot of potential for AI learning to affect many other sectors, not just art. And to be fair, we're already seeing that play out in some sectors. It's really interesting for the future. It's also concerning, though. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you there.